Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh. That's me, Kelly Singh. You can find me at Twitter at Kelly in Phoenix and the pod at Sick Pod Kelly. Today I have a special guest. We're going to have a little head-to-head matchup talking about week 3. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh.
Murray heaves it downfield. It is caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins. Miraculous. It's Murray magic.
The sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we're back. As I said, I have a very special guest today. I have my guest, Blaine Griesek, and he is the staff writer for Turf Show Times and covers the Los Angeles Rams at SB Nation. You can find him on Twitter at BGRISAKDTR, B Griesek DTR. You know, I just had to get that phonetically. I didn't want to totally mutilate it.
It's all good. It's definitely not the easiest name for sure. But thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Big game for both teams. So thanks again for having me on. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
It is really, I think it is going to be a really good matchup. And I haven't actually done a podcast like this where it's the two teams playing each other, but I know people really enjoy that. So it's something that I'm very excited to do with you today. And I even messaged you on Twitter. I'm like, I haven't really done this before. What should we discuss? But where I want to start is your Rams fandom and how that grew into a career. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, so it's pretty random because they started off they were in St. Louis obviously before they got to Los Angeles. But I have no connection to Los Angeles or St. Louis. I'm originally from Montana, but kind of growing up when I first started watching football, they were the greatest show on turf, and honestly, they were so fun to watch. Like anybody I think watching football at that time, just that was the team you wanted to watch, just because that offense it's one of the best offense ever for a reason. Fell in love with Kurt Warner's story. He became my favorite player, and then I've kind of just been a fan ever since. And then growing up, I always wanted to be a sports writer. It's just kind of what I wanted to do. So starting in college, I started writing for Ramblin' Fan over at Fansided, and that kind of got over to Rams Wire with USA Today when they first started. And then Jake Ellenbogen and I started Downtown Rams, and I was kind of with him for, probably 5 or 6 years. And I just started at Turf Show Times about a month ago. And yeah, it's been a long journey, but wouldn't trade it for the world.
I love that. It's a very relatable story for a lot of us who do podcasting and sports writing. It's just how that transition happens always makes me smile because it's so relatable, especially a lot of people who listen to this show too. So I love how you could take your fandom and put it into a career. I love that you mentioned Kurt Warner.
Right, there's a connection with both the Rams and the Cardinals. But I love hearing everybody's stories getting into sports because it's so different for everybody. Everybody kind of has their own path, and it's kind of fun to see where everybody started.
Agreed. It's one of my favorite parts of doing this. So let's talk about this game. Week 3. I know for my Cardinals, week 1, I just don't want to talk about it. I'm going to pretend that never happened. Week 2. Same. Week 2, there is a ton of momentum moving in to this game coming off of week 2 into week 3. The biggest comeback in franchise history, basically. I was at a loss for words on Tuesday when I was recapping because honestly, I was just disgusted with the first half. And then all of a sudden, it was the best game ever. So as we move into week 3, I'm a little nervous playing the Rams. Not gonna lie, but I do feel like we might have an advantage. I'll tell you why later, but I want to hear, what are you looking forward to most about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. These two teams their first 2 weeks are eerily similar. I mean, the first week they both got blown up by these AFC powerhouses, and then last week the Cardinals have this emotional roller coaster game where, like, I was watching, I was kind of score watching the first time. I was like, ooh, the Cardinals, like, they go 0-2. This could be kind of this. Does Cliff Kingsbury make it to the middle of the season despite signing a contract extension? And then in the second half, it was Kyler go do stuff. And I mean, there were times where he made the Raiders defense look like came straight out of a Madden video game, just hanging on there in the pocket for 8+ seconds was just crazy. And then the Rams, they somehow become the team that almost blew a 28-3 lead to the Atlanta Falcons, who are the team that's like infamous for blowing a 28-3 lead, and they were able to kind of hang on. But in this game, I'm just really looking forward to, this is the first time these two teams have met since the NFC wildcard game. So, like, what adjustments do both teams make? Like I said, they're both coming off these emotional roller coaster type games. Like, how do they bounce back off of that? I think it's gonna be a really fun matchup.
I agree. And you talk about being allowed in the pocket for so long. I think that 2-point conversion was like 20 seconds or something, just hanging out, figuring out what to do. And that's promising for me. Looking ahead, our defense or O-line, keeping Kyler safe there. And then the defense allowed, I believe, like the fewest points this last week. So I was very pleased with our defense. It wasn't terrible. It was much better, much better. But the Rams have a good defense. So
yeah, I don't think Aaron Donald's going to let Kyler Murray hang out in the pocket for
no.
20+ seconds. But yeah, I mean, the Cardinals looked a lot better there in the second half, and yeah, I mean, the Rams too. I mean, just Josh Allen was taking whatever he wanted basically in the first game, and then last week the Rams come out much better on defense. Really, they put in some bad positions with some Stafford turnovers and the special teams gaff with the punt block. But realistically, they only allowed 10 points if you add context. And
Right.
and then, I mean, the Cardinals last year in the NFC wildcard game without DeAndre Hopkins really struggled to moving the ball against the Rams defense. So, what adjustments does Cliff Kingsbury make to really hang in there? Because, yeah, this is a really big game for both teams.
You're right. I think we saw a preview of that. That was one of my points in the wrap up last episode this week was we have people that clearly know how to step up and step in, and they may not be DeAndre Hopkins, but they're doing the job that we need them to do. So I think it's going to be a very good game, a very close matchup, and there are implications win and loss for both of these teams. And I think you hit on it earlier for the Cardinals. It means for them, does Cliff Kingsbury continue? There's already headlines out here in Phoenix about potential for him to move to ASU and coach. So that's really interesting when we are only in week 3 of the NFL. So obviously a loss puts a big, ugly spotlight on the coaching position here in Phoenix. What does a loss mean for the Rams, do you think?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, this is a team that I don't want to. I don't want to say that they were favorites to repeat or anything, but I think that they're a team that they're definitely in contention to run the table again and go to the NFC and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, just because the NFC is so wide open. But I mean, they lose to the Cardinals here on the road. They have the 49ers next week, and I think everybody knows the Rams' record against the 49ers. It's not great, and I think Jimmy G being the quarterback there now with Lance's just really tragic injury last week kind of changes some things and gives them a veteran and yeah, I think Jimmy G's probably the better quarterback right now, but yeah, it's his record against the Rams is really good. So that could be lost next week. Rams lose on Sunday. That they're sitting at 1-3 after that, and then the Dallas Cowboys defense is looking really good. They have the Cowboys the week after that, and Micah Parsons is probably the favorite for defensive player of the year right now. So who knows what they have Cooper Rush at quarterback, but who knows if Dak is back at that point. And then, the Rams schedule is really, really, really difficult. They have Tampa Bay, I think, a few weeks after that. It's not easy. So if they can get a win against a team that they've historically with McVay and had success against, it would be a very good thing. That you got to get your wins when you can get them, and this is one of those weeks.
I think you're right. It's definitely a tough schedule for the Rams, and Stafford having shoulder issues and things like that I've read about. What do you think about that? Have you seen and heard about that?
From what I've heard, it's I think been very overblown by the media. I think there's something there. He did have elbow surgery. They were monitoring it, but it was something that he dealt with at the end of last year too. And I think when it comes to Matthew Stafford, we all know how tough he is. I mean, his most infamous moment is in his career, maybe outside the Super Bowl, is leading the Detroit Lions to a comeback with a broken collarbone. Like he's a tough player, and he's going to play through some pain. So I think it is overblown a little bit. Something to monitor as the season goes on, but I don't think it'll have a huge effect in this game.
I think you're right that those things do get overblown, especially when you're reading a biased piece too, which is a lot of what I end up reading. But one thing that I do think is currently overblown, but something to watch, is Stafford's interception rate. Not so good right now, but it's only week 3. He's played 2 games, so I don't know. That's where I'm like,
he needs to he does need to clean those up. And I mean, thankfully, it's gonna be interesting because I think the Cardinals offense has turned the ball over, or they're tied for turning the ball over the least right now, and the Rams defense are tied for their turning the ball over the most on defense. They're tied for the most turnovers on defense, and kind of how does that match up? And yeah, I mean, if the Rams are going to win games against these good teams, Stafford can't be turning the ball over. We saw during the playoffs what he's capable of, but he also has that sort of, Brett Favre type gunslinger mentality where he's going to trust his arm more than he probably should sometimes, and that's been the case so far this season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. I just feel so bad when we pile on and it's only been 2 games to kind of view. But at the same time, as fans of the opposing team, you find something to hang on. So, there's that shoulder injury, Blaine. You know all about it.
Yes.
And then you could be like, Kyler's really short.
Very short. Shortest player in the NFL. He's Aaron Donald's going to eat him alive on Sunday. That's for sure.
It's going to be fun. Do you have, speaking of Aaron Donald, do you have matchups between these 2 teams that you're excited to see clash, or any exciting same team stacks that you're excited to see explode?
So I'm curious to see what the Rams do in the run game this week. Last week they came up with this really crazy package, putting Ben Skoranek, a wide receiver, at fullback, and it really kind of got the run game going a little bit. So I'm curious to see if they deploy that again this week. But as far as just matchups go, the Cardinals linebackers have been extremely rough in coverage. Vigil, I think, has allowed the 6th most receptions and 7th most yards among linebackers. Simmons hasn't looked great in coverage, and Collins as well. All 3 of them they've been exploited a lot and just look lost sometimes in coverage. And so I'm kind of looking for Tyler Higbee. He had his most receptions last week. He had 7 receptions, which is his most since that incredible run that he went on at the end of 2020. Where going into 2021, people thought he was going to be this huge fantasy tight end, and that never really came to fruition. But I think last week getting involved in the offense was a good sign for him. And then Terrell Henderson, I kind of like this. I like to stay away from Rams running backs in fantasy football right now, just because you really don't know what to expect. But Terrell Henderson, I believe, has the second most routes ran among running backs, and I think with those linebackers, and just their ability and coverage right now, I think Henderson is a really good wide receiver, and that's a matchup I think McVay could look to exploit. And Cooper Kupp is an absolute monster in the slot and over the middle of the field, which is where those linebackers play. So I could see McVay definitely targeting that area with arguably the best wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think anybody would say that he's not the best wide receiver in the league. I feel like that is a very true statement, which is really interesting when you talk about daily fantasy, which I can get into because I am heavily involved in daily fantasy, but I'll get there in a minute. I'm really excited to continue to see Dortch play because I've mentioned this.
That's former Ram Greg Dortch.
Really? I didn't even know that. This is the funniest part. I'm like, nobody had him on their radar. And then week 1 and week 2, and now we're going into week 3. It's a great play. It's exciting and fun when you see somebody that you're not used to seeing out on the field just explode. It makes it a really fun game. I say fun a lot because it's so much fun.
Yes, it is. It's very, very fun. So I think the Cardinals wide receivers could have some fun against this Rams secondary. The Rams defensive backs, Troy Hill will miss this game because the Rams just put him on IR. He suffered an injury last week. Jalen Ramsey hasn't been at his usual All-Pro level. Teams have been able to get past him vertically, and I mean, Greg Dortch, he has that speed, and same with Hollywood Brown. So I could see I could see the Cardinals looking to attack the Rams secondary vertically and possibly having some success.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well, and especially when there are so many options now downfield. A lot of times, I think teams are going to be looking for Ertz to catch that end zone pass when it could end up being Dortch, which has been a lot of the case recently. And not to mention Hollywood Brown. I think that's true. And to touch on what you said about the Rams run game, like I'm excited and interested to see that as well, because it hasn't been, there haven't been that many rushing yards to date. So I think passing to Kupp is probably their best option, like you mentioned, arguably the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy concept. Get the ball into your best player's hands. Like who would have thought? And I could definitely see McVay looking to do that this week.
I think it's hard when I can't imagine trying to be the defensive coordinator where you need to cover Cooper Kupp, and you have a capable running back, you have a capable run game, so you don't want to like let off of it, because then they're give opportunity to run. I just get so nervous. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, and I think for the Cardinals, like what do? You get pressure on Stafford, like the Bills did in Week 1. I mean, the Rams' offensive line, they're without Andrew Whitworth this year. They're struggling with injuries up front. They're playing their third string right guard really on the right side, and yeah, it's if the Cardinals want to disrupt that Rams passing game and shut down Cooper Kupp, it starts up front. And I mean, I think the Cardinals are undefeated with J.J. Watt in the regular season. So if they can get some pressure on Stafford and force him into some mistakes, could be good for him.
I think so too. I think, gosh, I keep saying the same thing. It's just going to be a really fun game. It's going to be a good game to watch. And I'm excited. I had some feedback. Some people are wanting to hear more about betting and more about the spread. And because I was traveling yesterday, I didn't spend as much time looking at those things like I wanted to. But when it comes to your daily fantasy, I think Cooper Kupp is a good option. He's an expensive option if you're one of those who play daily fantasy, and there are less expensive options. But if you're trying to solely score a mess of points, that should be the anchor of your team there. Cooper Cup, you'll probably get 30 points, daily fantasy points out of him. That's been the standard thus far, but you're going to pay big. You can make that up slightly by putting someone like Dortch on your lineup as well, who will get points too. But he's not as cheap as he's been in week 1 and week 2. So it's a balancing act when we're talking about DFS, but it's interesting because those two players have come up on my radar in my ratings for DraftKings just yesterday. And then here we are talking Rams Cardinals today. But that's how I've been balancing my daily fantasy lineup, is those two players actually. So we talked, you don't play a ton of daily fantasy, if at all. And do you do any sports betting at all, Blaine? Are you into it?
I'll bet this. I'll bet the spreads. I do, like, sometimes I'll venture into player stat lines and stuff and bet the spreads on those. But DFS, I have not had a lot of success with it, so I try to stay away. But sports betting, I mean, if there's a game I really don't care about, one way to care a lot about is put some money on that game. So that's just typically what I do on a Sunday in the game, like even like tonight with the Browns and Steelers. I'll probably throw some money on that game, so I have something
Something to do.
Yeah, something to do. Yep.
Something to do other than watch casually.
Yes.
I know, it's my favorite. Before the show and before you popped in, actually, I was chatting with the production crew here at the Sick Podcast, and Underdog came up. So when I'm working in California, I don't get to do prop bets like I can when I'm here at home in Arizona. So I discovered Underdog, like a lot of people have now, and you can do these pick'ems, which are essentially the prop bets. So I can bet if Kyler Murray's going to rush, more than 50 yards, higher or lower. I guess that's how they get around it, but man, it is fun. It is addictive, children. So bet responsibly.
Of course, yes. Bet responsibly and have fun, but bet responsibly. That's the message.
Have you taken a look at Underdog ever?
I haven't. I stick with DraftKings. I do have some friends that play Underdog, and I haven't. I try to keep everything in one place, or if I have too many things going on, too many different places, it gets a lot to keep track of.
It is a lot to keep track of, but I will say it is fun. It's really fun. And if you haven't had luck with traditional DFS, you might try Underdog DFS, because it's like a draft. You draft your lineup. It's really fun.
And if you can do it in states that don't, that sports betting isn't allowed yet. Like I was in California. I was in California for week 1, and I was trying to bet those spreads, and I got the message, you're in a state that doesn't allow sports betting. I was so disappointed, but I'll have to keep Underdog in mind for times like
that. You will. Absolutely, because that's my little workaround and keeps my habits at bay, I guess. But yeah, sports betting, I love it. Today I'll try and tweet out some of my favorite props for this game and take a look at the spread, see if there's anything worth teasing. I'll let you guys know. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to research that prior to jumping in here with Blaine. Blaine, do you have any other things that you want to say about this upcoming matchup? Smack talk or stats or anything?
I'll just say that Sean McVay has owned Cliff Kingsbury since he's been in the league. I was in Arizona last week for the matchup, and that was so exciting watching Van Jefferson catch the deep pass from Stafford to kind of blow that game open there in the second half. And I see the Rams kind of tearing down the Cardinals season this Sunday, and the Cardinals start to kind of avalanche over the next couple of weeks. So we'll see.
Yes. That is bleak. That is a bleak outlook, but I like it. I like your boldness very bold takes there. I see it being close, but in each team's momentum shifts, I think plays in favor of the Cardinals. I think it will be close, but I see the Cardinals squeaking out a sneaky victory. Hopefully it's not just wishful thinking, but actual sports knowledge.
Yes.
Because that's what we all have, sports
That's
knowledge.
what we have. Yeah, we're full of knowledge and we're full of sports knowledge. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so silly. Thank you so much, Blaine, for being my guest today. It was so much fun. I hope we can do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully the Rams and Cardinals play twice a year, so
Yes.
maybe for the next one. Yes.
Absolutely. I'm going to put it on the calendar already. And also I want to thank everyone who watches, who's subscribed, who's liked, who's left comments. I've had plenty of people tweet at me and DM really helpful information for me as I'm trying to make this a better podcast. So thank you so much. Specifically today, I'll shout out my friend Bill and my friend Andrew, both of whom sent me links and visual aids for like what they'd like to see on the show. So more of that, you guys. Find me at Kelly in Phoenix. Find Blaine at B Grisak DTR. There it is.
Got it. Love it.
Yay. And we're here and open, I'm sure, to chit-chatting. And also, if you have any requests for the show, hit up SickPod Kelly and the team there. We'll be happy to pass it on, oblige, chit-chat. I don't know. Let's find out. See you Tuesday when we recap the show. Again, thank you, Blaine. Thank you, production crew. That's it. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.